My name is Captain Ibrahim Traoré. I do not speak with the polish of career diplomats. I do not wear the cologne of multinational boardrooms. I was not trained in Washington nor groomed in Geneva. I speak from the battlefield where my people bleed and the soil remembers. I speak for a nation that has long been treated like a debtor's prison. And today I speak directly to the International Monetary Fund, not with trembling hands, but with a voice rooted in centuries of African pain and now African awakening.
Have you ever wondered what would happen if an African leader openly challenged the IMF on the world stage? Today, I'm reacting to something powerful. Burkina Faso's President Ibrahim Traoré delivering a bold message to the IMF. People are calling it one of the most fearless speeches by an African leader in recent years. So let's watch it together and see what the hype is all about.
There comes a moment in the life of a nation when silence is betrayal, when continued obedience is suicide, and when bowing to the same hands that choke you is no longer diplomacy, it is surrender. Too long the IMF has posed as a benevolent doctor prescribing economic treatment to sick nations. But what we've learned, what we've suffered, is that your medicine often kills the patient. Your loans arrive with smiles, but they are poisoned arrows wrapped in contracts. You speak of stabilization, but you deliver strangulation. You speak of reform, but what you really mean is obedience to models built in foreign labs never meant for African soil. But we are not your laboratory. We are not your experiments. We are not pawns in your economic chess game. Burkina Faso and the whole of Africa is waking up. And when we wake, we do not ask for permission to breathe. You see, I come not to beg for cancellation, I come not to plead for relief.
That excerpt, "We are not pawns in your economic chess game," encapsulates the central argument here. President Traoré isn't just speaking metaphorically. He's highlighting the direct, often devastating, human consequences of these debt structures. When he asks, how can a nation rich in gold be poor? It's not a rhetorical question. It's an indictment of a system designed to extract, not uplift. The way he describes basic services being stripped away brings this abstract concept of debt into sharp, painful focus. It makes it clear that these aren't just economic theories. They are lived realities for millions. He unapologetically calls it economic coercion and neocolonialism in financial ropes. This is a vital distinction. It forces us to see how historical patterns of domination have merely shifted forms, operating through financial instruments rather than military force. And his demand for justice, rather than charity, is a complete reframing of the narrative. It implies accountability for those who have profited from these imbalances and a fundamental right for African nations to control their own destiny. Keeping listening to his words, and you will know how the IMF policies have affected Africa wrongly.
Let me ask you, how can a nation rich in gold, uranium, cobalt, and fertile land be poor? How can a continent that fuels the industries of the world not afford to feed its own children? We are told it is mismanagement, corruption, incompetence. Yes, Africa has its wounds, but many of those wounds were inflicted by the very hands now offering us Band-Aids soaked in interest. Let me tell you what this debt looks like in real life, not on your PowerPoint slides, but on our streets. It looks like children studying by candlelight because the national power grid was privatized and sold to foreign investors who charge prices our people cannot pay. It looks like hospitals with broken beds, no antibiotics, and mothers dying in childbirth because your conditions demanded we slash public spending to qualify for your health. It looks like millions of African graduates with degrees in hand but no future.
Think about the countless times we've seen African governments forced to privatize essential services or cut social spending. These aren't suggestions. They're often unavoidable choices with devastating consequences for ordinary citizens, creating dependency instead of genuine development. The immediate labeling of dissenting African leaders as radical or unstable is a well-worn tactic. It's a way to silence legitimate criticism and discredit those who dare to challenge the established order. This narrative control is as powerful as any financial leverage. His declaration that Africa will choose sovereignty, even if it means slower growth, is a profound act of self-determination. It prioritizes long-term dignity and genuine self-rule over short-term compliance. This isn't just a political statement, it's a moral one, a reclaiming of agency.
You lend us $500 million and ask for $2 billion in return over decades through interest restructuring fees, currency controls, and privatization clauses that rob us of our national assets. Tell me, what is the moral justification? You say the contracts were signed willingly, but let me ask, Is it consent when the patient is bleeding and you are the only one holding medicine with a price tag and a clause? Is it choice when the gun is not pointed at your head but at the starving child behind you? No, Your Excellencies at the IMF, this is not consent. It is economic coercion. This is not development. It is domination. This is not globalization. It is neocolonialism in financial ropes. And we, the new generation of African leadership, are no longer blind. We are no longer grateful for crumbs from the tables our labor built. We are done applauding policies that hollow out our economies in the name of efficiency. We will no longer trade our sovereignty for loans that disappear into the hands of consultants, only to return as debt for our grandchildren. Let me be even more clear. Africa does not owe you, you owe Africa.
Here, President Traoré broadens his critique to the entire global system. His assertion that it's designed to keep Africa in second place isn't hyperbole, it's a stark indictment of historical legacies and ongoing biases. When he asks why a continent so rich in resources still imports food, he's highlighting the absurdity of a system built on extraction rather than equitable development. The rigged scoreboard analogy perfectly encapsulates the feeling that Africa has been playing a game with rules set against it from the beginning. It's not about lacking effort. It's about systemic disadvantages embedded in trade agreements, financial regulations, and global power dynamics. The glaring double standards he points out exposes the hypocrisy at the heart of global economic governance. It clearly shows whose interests the current rules truly serve. His emphasis on Africa's value being in its people, not just its minerals, is a crucial reframing. It shifts the focus from merely being a source of raw materials to a hub of human potential, innovation, and self-directed growth. This is the foundation for a truly equitable future.
To the IMF, I say this with clarity and calm. We will be sovereign, even if it means rejecting your loans. Even if it means slower growth, but growth that is ours. Even if it means pain for now, but freedom in the long run. Africa does not need masters, it needs partners. And if you cannot walk with us as equals, then step aside, because we are moving forward, and this time the strings are being cut. Let me ask a simple question. Why is it that we, the continent with 60% of the world's arable land, still import food? Why do we who sit atop gold, diamonds, oil, and lithium need foreign aid? Because the game was never fair. We were made exporters of raw materials, not builders of temple. When we attempt to support local farmers with subsidies, we are told this distorts the market. Yet the US and Europe spend hundreds of billions on their own farmers every year and call it protection.
President Traoré's emphasis on self-reliance is key. Not isolation, but a redefinition of true partnership built on dignity and mutual respect. He outlines 5 principles that are both ambitious and practical. For me, feed ourselves first is foundational. A nation cannot be truly sovereign if its food security is dictated by external markets. This requires investing in local agriculture, processing, and distribution, making every village a fortress of food security, as he says. And educate to liberate is just as vital. Colonialism's most insidious weapon was arguably the educational system that devalued African knowledge. Reclaiming our narratives and fostering innovation through education is how we equip the next generation to truly build for themselves. His resounding message, there is no savior coming. The savior is already here. In our hands, our hearts, our unity is incredibly empowering. It puts the responsibility and the power firmly with the African people, rejecting the long-held narrative of external dependency.
By now you must understand, we are not in a battle of guns. We are in a battle of narratives, control, and fear. The institutions that chain us, whether called the IMF, the World Bank, or the silent elite who never show, their faces are not afraid of our armies. They're afraid of our awakening. Because an awakened African is a dangerous thing. The game they played so well. For decades, they told the world that Africa was the problem, that we are corrupted, that we are incapable of governance, that we are dependent, primitive, and always needing help. They told us these lies so many times that we began to believe them ourselves. So we begged, we borrowed, we bowed. But in doing so, we forgot who we are. We forgot that Africa is the cradle of civilization, that it was here under our skies that the stars were first read, that it was our ancestors who taught the world about medicine, astronomy, farming, and spirituality.
He breaks down the idea of power beautifully. It's not just about grand political gestures. It's about the farmer, the nurse, the teacher, the backbone of society. Every individual act of integrity, resilience, and engagement is a building block of a new Africa. His list of 5 sacred rights are not just abstract ideals. They are fundamental tools for empowerment. The right to question authority, to form unions, to demand transparency, these are the engines of a quiet revolution he speaks of. His message to the youth is incredibly potent. It's a rallying cry for immediate action, urging young Africans to seize their agency and shape their own destiny rather than passively waiting for change.
From Burkina Faso to Mali, from Niger to Uganda, from South Africa to Ethiopia, the veil is lifting. The spell is breaking. This is not just a political shift. It is spiritual. It is ancestral. It is prophetic. You are not just living through a revolution. You are the revolution, the reckoning on. For years they have extracted from us with impunity gold, oil, diamonds, cocoa, bauxite, uranium, and yet we remain the poorest continent in the world. No, this is not chance. It is by design. Well, here's what they didn't expect. That we would wake up, that our people would begin to connect the dots, that we would call out the lies, that we would dare to confront them not with hate but with truth. And truth is the most dangerous weapon of all. This reckoning is not about revenge. It is about justice. It is about restoration. It is about dignity. It is about telling the world, we are not your Terrifies. We are your creditors. And it's time to settle the account.
Here, President Traoré gets to the core truth. The real fear of those who benefit from the current system isn't African rage, but African awakening. He argues that their power thrives on ignorance and silence, and that a generation that knows its true history and power is unstoppable. His point about their power depending on our ignorance is a powerful call to learning. Being educated and knowing our history and understanding the mechanisms of global power become revolutionary acts. The truth, as he says, is the most dangerous weapon of all. The distinction he makes, that they fear our clarity and wisdom more than our weapons, is incredibly insightful. It means strategic, unified, and informed action rooted in a deep understanding of the game is far more threatening than impulsive reactions. He speaks of a spiritual shift happening across the continent. This taps into something deeper than just politics, a profound reclaiming of identity, pride, and an inherent strength that has been suppressed for too long.
To every young African listening to the sound of my voice, to every elder who kept the truth alive in whispered stories, to every mother who prays over empty plates with unshaken hope, to every child who walks barefoot through dusty roads, dreaming of something greater, hear me clearly now. The age of African reckoning has begun. Not with violence, not with hatred, but with truth, with clarity, with resolve forged in the fire of centuries of injustice. We are not begging anymore. We are not negotiating for scraps from colonial tables. We are building our own table from African wood, carved by African hands, for African generations. From silence to thunder. For too long our cries were ignored. Our pain was politicized, our suffering monetized, our silence weaponized against us. But now we speak not with bitterness but with boldness, not to seek pity but to demand justice. They thought we were buried, but they forgot we are seeds. Let the world hear this. Africa is not waiting to be saved. Africa is rising to save itself. We are uniting across borders drawn by foreign hands. We are building systems that serve the people, not puppets. We are reclaiming our narratives, our currencies, our futures. Let the world hear this declaration echo through every institution built to contain us. We are awake and we are coming for everything that was stolen.
What President Traoré delivers is nothing short of a manifesto for African liberation and self-determination. It's a message that should resonate with anyone who believes in fairness, justice, and the inherent right of every nation to chart its own destiny. His call to action isn't just for leaders, it's for every single African. It's about building our own table from our own wood with our own hands. It's about remembering who we are, the cradle of civilization, the heartbeat of humanity, the roar of tomorrow. This isn't about hatred or revenge. It's about restoration, dignity, and justice. It's about an unstoppable power that comes from a people who have finally remembered their name. I urge you to reflect on these words. What does this African reckoning mean to you? How can you, in your own sphere, contribute to this powerful movement towards true self-reliance and sovereignty? I want to hear your thoughts on this incredible message. Leave a comment below and let's keep this vital conversation going. If you found this breakdown insightful, please give it a thumbs up, share it widely with everyone you know, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel for more discussions that challenge the status quo and amplify important voices. Thank you for listening. Let the world bear witness to this rebirth.